the Hall of Fame committee for thinking that I'm worth this honor. This is a long time ago at the start. I was a junior in college when I decided that I wanted to coach college golf. I didn't have a great experience. I had Hank Haney as a roommate. That's not a good thing. And I decided that I was going to coach college golf because he didn't know anything about it, and he kept trying to tell everybody he did. So I went to Colorado State to get a master's degree, and I went in and talked to the athletic director here, Thurman Fung McGraw, a Detroit linesman who was about 300 pounds, just an overwhelming kind of a guy. And I said, I'd like to start a golf program here, and he laughed. And I said, no, really, I'd like to start a golf program here. This is my passion. I want to do this. And he said, all right, I'll give you the opportunity to do that. And I said, great. I said, how much do I get paid? And he said, well, you don't get paid anything. And I said, well, okay, well, how about my budget? He said, well, let me think about that. I'll come back. So I came back a couple days later. He says, I've got a budget for you. He said, it's $1,000. And I said, oh, $1,000? That's good. Well, what does that entail? What do I need to do with it? He said, well, you have to buy memberships at the local golf course for your team to play. He said, and that'll cover all your travel and all your entry fees for golf tournaments for the year. I thought, oh, this is pretty good. Well, as I come to find out, $1,000 doesn't go real far. It costs $600 to buy the memberships for my team, so I had $400 to travel that year. I gave the players $3 a day to eat on. We had a lot of French fries at McDonald's. We slept 6 to a room. I bought one shirt for the team, and I washed it every night. But that was my start in college golf, and it was wonderful, and I thank him for letting me do that. And that allowed me to advance to Army, and then to Minnesota, and then to Wisconsin, Eau Claire, and now I ended up at Idaho. And I don't think I'm going anywhere else. I think I'm pretty much set. But when I started at Colorado State, this is a true story. My very first tournament, I put an ad in the paper for players, and so I had a bunch of players come out. We had a qualifying. And I got my team, and we're going to play down at the Falcon Invitational at the Air Force Academy. And I knew Gene Miranda and Mark Simpson only from when I played college golf, and I knew them as coaches. So I knew I had somebody down there that I know. So I get in the 12-passenger van, and we start driving down the road. I get about halfway between Fort Collins and Colorado Springs, where the Air Force Academy is located. And I smell something funny in the van. I remember this was my very first trip. And 2 of my players are older than I am. I'm 21 years old, and I got 2 players who are 22. And it smells something funny, and I'm not very intelligent, so I don't know what this is, but I look in the rearview mirror, and I see 2 guys in the very back of the van holding something really tiny in their fingers, and they're taking a puff of it, and they're smoking their nose, and it smells funny. And so I thought about this as I'm driving, like, holy smokes, is this that pot thing that I've heard about?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh my God, this is my last trip. This is it. I'm done. I'll never be able to go again. So I get down to the Air Force Academy, and I talk to Coach Miranda and Coach Simpson and say, what do I do? And they look at me and they laugh and go, you're way over your head, buddy. Way over your head. That was my first experience with college golf. I got them to put it out, and they didn't do it anymore. And of course, when you stay 6 in a room, it's pretty easy to keep track of them. But that was my first foray into this college thing. Like Bruce, I'd like to introduce the people that made all this possible for me, and that's our too. This is the number 2 part.
You got it, brother.
I don't even know what order to go, but I'm going to start at the top. My mother and father are here. For somebody that's been in this for a long time, to have your mother and father still here to see this is pretty special.
God damn right.
My father is not only my hero, but he's the smartest man in the world because he married my mother. and she tells me that my father is actually mine. That's a good thing.
Yeah, you stole my line.
My father claims that I was going to have a twin, but he got excited prematurely, and so I ended up with just me, which is a good thing. Is that true? That's true. But
that's your Sonny.
My father taught me everything I know. My father has to date never been wrong.
Oh my God.
To live up to what he has taught me, because honest to God, everything he's told me, I thought he was so stupid when I was in college. Mark Twain had a quote. I don't get it wrong, but Mark Twain had a quote that says something like, when I was 17, it was amazing how dumb my father was. By the time I was 21, it was amazing how much he had learned. And my dad was one dumb SOB, but I tell you what, by the time I graduated college, he was the smartest man in the world. So thank you, Mom, and thank you, Dad, for being here. Sitting next to my father is my namesake. By the way, I'm John Richard Means Jr., named after my father, and the little guy that's sitting next to him is John Richard Means III, who was a national champion baseball player. He played at the University of St. Thomas, and he won a national championship. He has
that big head.
And now that his baseball days are over, he is trying to be a golfer. And back when he was in 7th grade, he shot in the 30s. And now he shoots in the 30s after about 4 holes. But he's working hard to get that back.
Who the heck is LJ?
Is my longtime friend and former coach from the University of Alabama, Birmingham, Mike Dunphy. Interesting how I met Mike. I was coaching at Minnesota, and I was on the board at that time. And I'm sitting in my office, I'll never forget this, I'm sitting in my office when the phone rings, and it's Mike Dunphy. He introduced me. I had no idea who this guy is. And he said, I'm a brand new coach in college golf. My name's Mike Dunphy, and I'm at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And he said, I was told to call you because you could tell me how to coach college golf. And I'm like, I can do what? He goes, that's what everybody tells me. They won't give me any answers, but they said call you and you would tell me what to do. And so we talked for a long, long time. I invited him to a convention. I think that might have been the first or second year we ever had a convention. I invited him to come down to the convention. He didn't have any money, so he stayed in my room with me, and he got to meet all the coaches. Did a great job at Alabama, Birmingham. Greg McDowell is his responsibility. He then went on to Cleveland Golf, and he's been representing Cleveland Drixon as the player development man for many, many years. And Michael, thank you so much for being here and always been supportive of the next to Mike, the kind of bald guy in the front, is Warren Shulman. Warren was the assistant baseball coach at Army about 2 million years ago, and he's a golf nut. And he's been my biggest supporter, both money and pats in the back and slaps upside the head forever. He's supported my program at Army. He supported my program at Minnesota. He supported my program at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and he supports the program at the University of Idaho. Warren, thank you very much for being here. The two young people that are next to Warren are my mother and father-in-law. How many coaches are bringing their mother and father-in-law to Vegas? Please raise your hands if your mother and father-in-law you're bringing to Vegas. My mother and father-in-law are here because my wife can't be. They're here taking her place because she's in radiation. She has cancer, and she can't be here this week. And so, as a default, because I don't like either one of you at all, as a default, they're here. They're responsible for me coaching the women at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Division III institution, women, which is about as far on the opposite side of the scale from Division I men as you can get. And I can tell you, after my 5 years coaching those women, I learned more about myself and more about golf with that team and those women than anything else I've ever done. It was the greatest experience of my life. I have a whole different respect for coaches that coach in Division III because the players pay to be there. They work their ass off for nothing, and they just love to come to practice every single day. It was the most wonderful experience, and Mom and Dad Kopp, thank you for doing that. And next to Mom and Dad Kopp is Father Time, Lee Dietrich. Lee Dietrich has been my assistant coach at every single institution I've been at. The institutions I've been fortunate to coach have not had a lot of money. We haven't been able to raise $13 million. We've been able to raise $13. And Lee has been my volunteer assistant at Army and at Minnesota and at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and he's my volunteer assistant at the University of Idaho. And all the things that my teams have accomplished have absolutely nothing to do with me. They're all the responsibility of Father Time, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Lee. And next to Lee is the person that got me playing golf. It's my little sister, Shelley. My mom was giving birth to what I hoped to be my brother, and instead it ended up being another damn girl. I've got 4 sisters. And as a present, when my mom got home from the hospital, my father had 2 sets of golf clubs in the bedroom. Hattie Berg and Sam Snead, if I remember correctly. And I came into my dad's bedroom and I said, what in the world are these? I had never seen such implements in my life. And my father said, well, these are golf clubs. And I said, well, what do you do with them? And so he showed me what we did with them. And then he went out and bought me a 5-iron, of which I learned how to play golf with a 5-iron. That's the only club I had for one full year. But if it wasn't for my lovely sister, Shelley, being born, I wouldn't be up here talking. And right behind my sister is my youngest sibling, Jeff, who thought I was a nerd because I played golf my whole life, and now he plays 5 times a week, and he sucks. But he still plays 5 times a week.
I love the guy.
Thank you for being here. And sitting behind him is a complete surprise to me, and thank you, Coach Watts, for doing this, is Rob Craddock. And Rob Craddock was my team captain in 1991 at Army. He was my assistant coach at Army the year that I left to go to the University of Minnesota. I was telling Brian he had a watercolor done of the 18th green or 18th hole at Army and gave it to me as a going away gift, and it said, "Your little buddy RC" on it. I mean, it's just one of the greatest things I've ever received from anybody. But I'll tell you a little story about RC. We're playing a golf course in Princeton, I think it was Princeton. And RC hit the ball, just never missed the fairway, but he only hit it about 220 on a good day. And so we're playing a par 4 that's about 435 yards. And he's got this old tailor-made burner driver with a titanium shaft that's about 4 inches long, extra long. And he gets up there and he beats this ball a good 220, maybe 221 down the fairway, and takes his driver out again, and he just belts it off the fairway and rolls it up to the pin. It's about 8 inches away from the hole. And he turns and looks at me, and he gets this big evil grin on his face. And he tilted his head to the side, and I'm like, what the heck is he doing? He's tilting his head to the side, he's smiling. It dawned on me, he wanted to putt that with his driver so he could tell the guys in the van on the way home, get driver, and made birdie. That's Rob Craddock. Rob, thank you so much for being here. Brian, thank you for telling him and bringing him here. This is awesome. I'm getting better now. That was a hard part. A lot's happened for me in 34 years of coaching. When Fred Warren called me, I had a very emotional walk. I cried, which is something that an old guy shouldn't be doing, but it was very, very hard for me. And I sat down and I started to reflect on what I've done in college golf, and I tried to think of all the team championships and team championships that we won and the team tournaments that we won. I couldn't remember a single one. Not a single tournament could I remember. I remembered the great trophies that we had. The Falcon that we won at the Air Force Academy. I went back and I asked our sports information person, how many tournaments would you go call these other schools and find out how many tournaments that my teams have won in the past? There were 72 of them, and I didn't remember the one. But what kept coming back in my head was individual players and coaches. And I had tons of stories that come to my head. A player that had a stroke and became an All-American. A player that was an alcoholic, and his teammates told me about it. And we took him into rehab, and he became an All-American. A player that won the NCAA individual championship that the week before at the NCAA regionals played 4 straight rounds and didn't count one single time, and he cried in my wife's arms. And if it wasn't for his teammates who got him to the national championship, he would have won. I remember celebrating 21st birthdays with all my players when they were away from home. And 21st birthday for most people is a pretty big deal. I was the best man, fortunate to be the best man in one of my players' weddings. I've been at many of my players' birth of their first child. I just can't tell you, I cannot tell you how excited and how proud I am to have had an opportunity to be in these young men's lives. And then I thought about the coaches and some of the things. I'm up here getting beer and I see some of my very old friends, the Bob Ellis's and the Joe Prisco's of the world, and we start telling stories. And again, a million stories fly through my head. Like the time, Joe, you stole my golf clubs at the NCAA regionals. We back in the day, we used to play practice rounds with the guys, and the NCAA regionals showed up, and they put this rule in that coaches couldn't play, and I went, the hell with that. So I I'm out there with my Army team. We're playing in the NCAA regional practice round, and there's an elevated tee box. And I go up to hit my ball in the tee box, and Joe comes by in his cart, grabs the bag without even slowing down, and says, "You'll find these in the parking lot." Thank you, Joe. And they were in the parking lot. Devin Browse. Devin Browse and I worked out a deal. I was recruiting a guy by the name of Mark Wilson and another guy, a Canadian by the name of Rob Kerr, and so was Devin Browse. So Devin calls me on the phone and he says, "Any possibility that you want to make a trade?" And I said, what kind of trade are you talking about? He said, "I'll get you Rob Kerr if you give me Mark Wilson." And Mark Wilson, this is when I was at Minnesota, Mark Wilson was in Menominee, Wisconsin, so he's close by. I got to see Mark all the time. Rob Kerr was from Quebec. And I said, "Well, how do I do that?" He said, "Well, Mark Wilson's being recruited really hard by Tennessee and Virginia, and by you and by me." He said, "And Rob Kerr is being recruited really hard by you and by me." He said, "I'll push Rob Kerr to you if you push Mark Wilson to me." I said, "Deal." Mark Wilson goes to North Carolina, becomes an All-American. Rob Kerr comes to Minnesota, wins the NCAA Regional Championship, becomes an All-American. Good trade. Barry Rodenhaver. Where's Barry? Barry here? Barry Rodenhaver and I were sitting down at the Border Olympics one time. And we were sitting there enjoying a cold soda, I think, after the round. And I said to Barry, "Wouldn't it be great if we could trade players?" And Barry said, "Yeah, that'd be really good. I got some guys I don't like." And I said, "Yeah, that would be awesome." So I said, "Hey, I got an idea. I've got a freshman staying in my room with me. I said, you guys are teeing off first tomorrow. We're teeing off last." I said, "What time are you planning to go on the golf course?" He said, "Oh, we're going to go about 6:30. And I said, "Oh, that's the time I got wake-up call." I said, "Do me a favor." I said, "Come knock on the door, and we're going to tell Mark Hansen that he's been traded to SMU." So 6:30 rolls around. There's just bam, bam, bam on the door. I mean, this is loud, bam, bam, bam. Hansen jumps out of bed, up, and I roll over, and he goes, "What's that?" And I go, "I don't know. You better go and answer the door." So he gets out of bed in his boxers. He goes over and answers the door, and Barry's standing there, and he goes, "Are you Hansen?" He goes, "Well, yeah, I am." He goes, "What the hell are you doing? Get in the van." And he's looking at me and going, "What's going on?" I said, "Oh, gosh, Mark, I forgot." I said, "I traded you last night to SMU. Barry says, "Get your shit and get in the van. I've got a uniform for you." The kid picks up his stuff, grabs his clubs, and starts heading for the door. I mean, not get better than that. We're playing not at the NCAA championship. We're playing in what used to be called the East-West matches, which to this day I think are probably one of the greatest things that the Golf Coaches Association ever did. You got to play, the best player from each team represented either the West Coast or the East Coast, and they played in just 18-hole match play event. I think it would have been great television. But I'm there with an Army individual, his name's Dave Goodling, and he gets paired with a guy named Trevor Dodds, who plays for Lamar. And Greg Grost, and I love Greg dearly. I graduated from the University of Oklahoma. By the way, they beat Oklahoma State the other day, if anybody noticed that. And I didn't know Greg at all, but Greg went up to the GCA committee and then standing there, and he's just lambasting him about this kid. How come a kid from Army gets to play with my guy from Lamar, Trevor Dodds? My guy's a great player, and he's stuck with this Army guy. Well, the two of those guys went out and just absolutely throttled the other two guys who were playing, and they became friends. And that was my first meeting ever with Greg, so that was kind of a good one. And the last little quip I'll tell you about the NCAA is this guy by the name of Charlie Matlock from Florida Southern. Back in the day, when the dinosaurs roamed the plains, the Division II and the Division III individual national championship played in the Division I national championship. And Army was playing in the national championship at Bermuda Run. 32 teams were in that field, and I can't remember the total number of individuals, but I'm going to guess there was probably about 8. And because we were ranked 31 or 32, we got paired with individuals. And my 5th player was playing with the Division II national champion. And my 5th player was not really good, but he was a hell of a competitor. So I'm watching him play this round. He hits it out of bounds on 10. I'm walking with my 4-man, and it's my 5-man. He hits it out of bounds on 10. He hits it in the water on 11. He buries it under the lip on 12. He hits it in the water on 14. So the round's over. Charlie Matlock, very distinguished Southern gentleman, is standing behind the green with his arms like this, and he's waiting for me to come up. So I look up there, and he is just livid. And I don't know what went on. So I walk behind the green, and he says to me, Coach Maines, your boy is a travesty to the game of golf. And I said, oh my God, what did he do? He said, he cannot play golf, and he should not be on this golf course. My players stand over the side, and I walked over and said, Rob, I said, where did you shoot? He goes, I shot 76. He said, I had a terrible time with the ball. He said, I had 8 penalty strokes. But I chipped in 3 times, I knocked in a couple 30-footers, and I shot 76. Well, the guy he's playing with was a player you might recognize. His name was Lee Jansen. And Lee was Division II national championship. And I said, what did Lee shoot me? 76. And Lee had hit 16 greens. I think Rob had hit 2, and they tied. So my player was a travesty. I thought that was pretty good. Talking about coaches and my life in coaching, I think the thing that's most important, the thing that I'll remember forever, is my opportunity to serve the Golf Coaches Association of America. Back in Texas, again 100 years ago, underneath a tent, the Golf Coaches Association was really formed as you see it now. Gene Miranda was the president, and Gene had to retire from his coaching position, and so he had to resign as president. And a guy by the name of Bob Nye, Division III soccer coach, who also was a golf coach, took the podium underneath this tent. And he said, we're going to make an organization here that's great, and we're going to start right now. And back then, at the national championship, it was the only time we had coaches meeting. We didn't have conventions. We just met at the national championship. So if you weren't one of the top 32 teams in the country, you just didn't meet. Division II coaches didn't meet. Division III coaches didn't meet. It was just the creme de la creme that met every single year at the national championship. He established Robert's Rules of Order. He established bylaws. And he started what we see now as the Golf Coaches Association. He asked me back at that time if I would start a top 20 poll. We had a top 20 poll, but it was just really kind of weak. And he wanted to get national recognition for college golf. And he said, we'll do this by starting a top 20 poll, and we'll get it published in Golf World, Golf Week, and the USA Today. And so I formed a committee under his guidance. I formed a committee. We ran a golf poll. And sure enough, it was published by those 3 papers. Several years later, the golf poll was bought. And at that time, college golf really started to grow. He asked me then to be on the legislative committee for the GCAA. And my task was to go in front of the NCAA committee of about, 3,000 to 4,000 athletic directors and presidents and talk to them about legislation for college golf, of which we changed many, many things to the good for college golf and got them into the rule book. And from that, he asked me if I would consider running for the board. And I thought, well, sure, this is a great thing. And I ran for the board, and I was fortunate enough to be on the board for 10 years. And in that time, Bob Nye taught me something very, very important. He said the Golf Coaches Association is not about the bigwigs. It's not about the people at the top. It's about all coaches and about all programs. He said, what we need to do is we need to help everybody, not just the big boys. The big boys already have help. They get help from all kinds of organizations. We don't have a way for our coaches to get golf balls. We don't have a way for our coaches to get discounted shoes. We don't have a way for our coaches to get clothes. And what we had to do back in those days is we had to buy it from the local golf shop. We'd go buy 10 dozen balls from the local golf shop. We'd buy shirts from the local golf shop, get them embroidered. So he asked me to go to the PGA show and talk to the people at all the different companies, and I did. And I was able to sign 20 people as corporate sponsors of the Golf Coaches Association with this proviso. They had to pay $500 to our association to be a sponsor member, and they had to come up with a discount plan for our members to use. And with that discount plan, I needed a phone number and a contact name. And they would go into our monthly newsletter, and our coaches would be able to use that to be able to get discounts. The first people we signed, the first company we signed was Nike. And Nike offered us 40% off of wholesale for their shirts. Nike was a new company at that time. They just started. And pretty soon, just about every team in the country is wearing Nike clothes. It was a wonderful time. And from those sponsorships, has evolved this organization and the sponsors that we have now, and the great amount of money that Greg's managed to bring in to make this organization great. I thought after serving on the board for 10 years, I thought I would be relieved because it was a very difficult job. What all these men up here do is very time-consuming and very thankless. And so I thought, well, when my time's up, this is going to be good. I'm going to have some time off and be able to do some nice things. When the day ended, I was so sad, you could probably believe it, because I thought that my opportunity to help this association grow was done. But it wasn't done. I was done, but the association continued to grow. And what you see now is, I think Greg told me, the largest number of people that have ever attended the convention in history. And I thank all of you for that. I thank you for supporting the GCA and continuing to come and making this bigger and bigger and better. It's something Bob and I wanted. It's something Bob and I started. And I was so glad I was a part of helping seeing it grow. If there's one piece of advice that I could give to anybody in this room, it's to do this. It's to serve. It's to get an opportunity. I don't care if you're Division III or Division II or Division 1. It doesn't make any difference how big your program is or how much money you have. You need to have an opportunity to serve and make a difference, to change things for the betterment of college golf and to give your players a chance. And that's the most important thing I can possibly say to anybody. Please, take time. I don't care how small you are. Take time to serve. Be a part of this great organization. I'm almost done. I'm honored. I'm humbled. And I'm extremely grateful for all of you being here and for inducting me in the Hall of Fame. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal for my family. And it's a big deal for my wife. I thank each and every one of you for being here and being a part of this very, very special day for me. Thank you all very much.
I figured that was coming early.
Nice job, John. Is Jim Owen Oglethorpe. In his 21 seasons